to the 2-2 Tango Show. I am your hostess with the mostest, Linda Sutton. And this evening we are going to have an exciting discussion this evening. This evening we are featuring Tony Prado, the co-owner of Queen City Ballroom, who's going to be having a discussion with me on the different styles of tango. Welcome to the show, Tony.
Thank you so much.
So
Thank you.
delighted to have you. We had that wonderful opening segment that was featuring a little bit of your work in Argentine tango.
That's right.
And we're going to spend a little bit of time taking our audience on this journey through the different types of tango, since when most people think of tango, they think it's all just one dance, but there's really different styles and types.
That's true. You get a lot of people who are trying to learn to tango, and I've even had people come into my studio that say, I want to learn to tango. And if I'm lucky, sometimes people will come in and say, I want to learn the Argentine tango. Mm-hmm. And so I know that they've at least taken the time to learn that there is a difference between what they see in a ballroom competition or on one of the other television shows and the Argentine tango. And there's so many differences, and what I like to do is I like to highlight the differences, but also highlight the similarities between the two.
Wonderful, and that's why we have you here on the show. So we're going to go on that journey. Now, before we get into the kind of the similarities and differences, I'd love my viewers to kind of get a backdrop on your experience, because it's quite extensive. Tell us a little bit about your backdrop.
Well, let's see. In Argentine tango, I started dancing in 1995. Right. I was going through some life changes and decided, well, obviously something's not working. And a friend of mine said, let's go dancing. And I thought that it was going to be going to a club, having a good night, having a few drinks, and he took me to a ballroom. So they were selling lessons. I took a couple of lessons for about $10, and a couple of lessons led to a few more lessons, and led to a few more lessons. Next thing you knew, I was teaching. And then one day, somebody showed me something different. And that something different was the Argentine style tango. Wow. And as a ballroom dancer, and I think this is one of the things that people don't realize about ballroom dancers, I wanted to go to the source. I didn't want to just copy something off of a video. I didn't want to make it up on my own. I wanted to go to the source and have somebody teach me, what is this that I'm seeing? So first I went to Miami to study tango under Jorge Nel Giraldo, and worked with him for about 4 years, learning the different basics of the tango and working on the basic baldosa and things like that. Then I went to Buenos Aires, Argentina. I had the good fortune to go to the World Championships there. Wonderful experience, yes. Wonderful experience. And got to go to a place called Tango Brujo, which I consider to be the heart, the beating heart of the tango. And I met Adrián Berediche and and Alejandra Aubert. And they are now my tango masters. And they began to show me tango, like you say, as a metaphor. What is the relationship? What happens between the man and the lady? And I've just never looked back.
I love it, and that's wonderful, because so many of our dancers and our viewers don't ever get an opportunity to kind of make that pilgrimage, and it really does bring a lot of insight and enlightenment to the who, what, when, where, and why of this dance.
Even when you're just walking down the street. If you walk from your hotel to Tango Brujo, it's almost like you can feel it drawing you in. So at first you're on a beautiful city street, and then you're on a sort of a darker street, and then it gets darker, and then you sort of feel that there's something teeming underneath. And then you walk into Tango Brujo, and there's a smell of the place that smells like wood and oil, and you can sort of, you hear the sort of scuff of the shoes, and you go up these stairs, and of course it's a very steep staircase. And you go up these stairs, and you see like a cloud of people moving, and they're communicating, but they're not talking. And that's when you're hooked.
Yes, exactly. We become tango addicts.
That's when you become a tanguero, as we say.
I love it, because I've had the opportunity to be at Tango Brujo. I love, of course, I start there with the shoes and then go through the clothing and then
it's
go
all
up
about
to
that.
the studio.
Yeah. My favorite pair of pants is the pair of pants, the tango pants that I bought in Argentina.
I love it. I love it. Wonderful. So now, in drawing the distinctions, because you've had an opportunity to go to the heart of tango, at least Argentine tango, let's start to talk about the differences so that people can draw the distinctions. Of course, in the Argentine tango community, they know that there's a difference because they're able to draw the distinction that they know that they're seeking Argentine or the Argentine style. But for our viewers that don't know the differences, let's start there.
Okay. To discuss the differences, it's important to know first off that American tango takes something from Argentine tango. Okay. A lot of people think that the American tango is sort of, oh, that's not the same. It's not. It's a different tango. Well, yes, it is, but it pays homage to the Argentine tango. And I've done extensive study on what is in Argentine tango el código del giro, the code of turn, as Adrián will teach you, and how the body works faster backwards than it works forwards, and thus comes the quick, quick, slow of tango. And what is the resolution? Well, in an American tango, the differences, in a nutshell, you're going to see a very proper ballroom hold. Specifically, there are three kinds of tango. There's the American tango, the international or European tango, and what we call tango, the original Argentine tango. In the European tango, you're going to see a very rigid hold, and it was designed by a consortium of British people who wanted to dance to the tango music, but something that was more regimented and more according to a ballroom style. So they created a series of moves that depicted tango music in a very flat form. American tango took that same series of moves, but wanted to add the resolution, la resolución. So when we do our 6-7-8 in Argentine tango, it is the same as the tango close of the American tango. But the Americans will put in ganchos, sacadas, and things like that in their tango, but at the same time they'll put in some of those ballroom figures, creating sort of a hybrid. So that's the differences in a nutshell.
Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. And I can appreciate that, because now when you talk about the ballroom hold versus the more apilado style of tango, what do you find to be the differences in that experience? Tremendous,
absolutely tremendous. As a matter of fact, I find that it's difficult from a ballroom point of view. I started as a ballroom dancer in 1995, and it's difficult for a ballroom dancer to make the shift to el tango, because from a ballroom dancing standpoint, you're breaking all the rules.
Yes.
The hold in American ballroom is what we call an offset hold. The lady's right leg is in between my feet, and my sternum is with the lady's shoulder. My shoulder is with the lady's sternum. So we are very much offset like this. In el tango, we are collarbone to collarbone. And what I discovered is that a dancer can't really understand his craft until he understands where it came from. So only by understanding Argentine tango did I understand the American tango. And only by understanding where the American tango got its idea did I really understand why Argentine tango is important. So I feel like I have the best of both, but very, very different in the hold. We're going to be in a full embrace in tango, or a partial embrace, but still facing our lady face on. And that hold itself creates the dissonance that is tango. Tango is a dissonance and a crisis that then gets resolved in a beautiful way.
I love it. And I love the poetry in which you speak about the tango as well as dance it. So you were talking about breaking all the rules, and we experience this in the discussion in the Argentine tango community, because sometimes we have experienced there to be a schism because there is such a difference, but I have found as an instructor and as a performer that schism is lies in what you just defined as the difference in the rules. And so by not resolving the fact that there is a difference in kind of the basic structure or the basic embrace or abrazo of tango versus the embrace or the hold of the American style tango, then both groups kind of look at each other and scoff sometimes. I experience that. It's kind of like, well, that's not tango and that's not tango, but they both are, just with a kind of different structure.
Oh, and it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart because I understand both sides. I completely understand both sides. And I've gone into a tango class, basic tango, and seen an argument ensue. Because one tango instructor will stand up and say, all right, I'm going to teach you the basic step. And he begins to teach the basic baldosa. And the next tango dancer down the line will say, but there is no basic step. And I've studied enough to understand why that argument exists. But in defense of the ballroom dancers, I always remember dancing imitates life. That's what it's for. I mean, there are three basic ways, there are three most intense ways of communication. When we're in love with someone, and when we're together with that person, when we kiss that person, or when we dance. Those are the three most intense and most intimate methods of communication. So of the big three, dancing is up there. And
I love it.
Dancing imitates life. So dancing tries to say, what is it that makes us human? What is it that makes us passionate? And so then when a dancer goes out, and ballroom dancers I have to call ballroom dancers out and say, okay, we're guilty. We saw something, and we the ballroom dancers, those who came before me, said, okay, what are we seeing? And so they looked at videotapes and movies and all of the different things that are available to find Argentine tango. And then they began to attempt to imitate what they saw. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, we're also in America. Ballroom dancers will then try to market what they've created. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? They're also human, so they made some mistakes. Mm-hmm. And what happened was people who are tango purists who had been to Buenos Aires and studied said, well, that's not what we do. Mm-hmm. And I experienced this firsthand because I studied, I looked at tapes, and I tried to learn the Argentine tango. And then I went to Jorge Nel Giraldo. And he said to me in his beautiful voice, he said, what you are dancing looks like tango, but it's not tango. Well, of course, I mean, I was in my 20s. I was crestfallen. But then he had the kindness in his heart to show me. Mm-hmm. And I learned, I thought, oh, I'm doing the steps that I see. And I'm doing these things that I see on the ballroom videos. But there's an understanding that goes deeper. And so now I can go back and I can see the mistakes in those steps. I can see why it's not tango. Mm-hmm. Because I've gone deeper to the source and figured out where did it come from. So it's only by understanding. I think the tango dancers sometimes forget that imitation is, in fact, the best form of flattery.
It is, and I appreciate that. And not only that, both sides understanding that tango is about people coming together.
Absolutely.
And about working into harmony and being in step with one another, both passionately and otherwise. So I appreciate the tension that you see in that inherent in the dance may show up on and off the dance floor, but as you were referring to, the resolution is a very beautiful thing. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because when you start a tango, and I realized this very, very early on, but when you start a tango, Adrián teaches that every step in tango is based on code of turn. Mm-hmm. So you have forward, side, back, side, forward, side, back, side, forward, side, back, side. And you've been through the same class, so you understand. So you have a few basics. You have your code of turn, you have your triangle position, and I don't know if the viewers are up to speed on those, but those are things that get talked about in tango classes. And when you realize that the first time you take a baldosa, and they take a group of people and they say, we're going to do this step in 8 tiempos, 8 times. Mm-hmm. And they do a baldosa, you go forward, side, back, back. Mm-hmm. The very first step you learn breaks the code. So then you have to say, if tango breaks its own rule from the get-go, how can there be a basic step?
Now, when you use the term baldosa, because I know they're hearing that frequently, I'm going to allow you to define it for them.
A baldosa, as defined, is, of course, we have to pay respect to the people who say there is no basic step. There are concepts. Mm-hmm. Any one paso, any one footstep can lead to any other footstep. Mm-hmm. So it's very common for the man to go backwards with his right foot and sideways with his left foot. Lady would go correspondingly forward with her left foot and sideways with her right. This is called in tango 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. And those in tango parlance are called the salidas, the exits. Mm-hmm. So what the dancers are doing, if someone were just saying, what am I doing? I'm just starting to dance tango, the lady goes forward and then side. She has been exited. She's been taken out of something. She's been taken out of the hold into the dance. Then the man does what is called the 3 and 4, mm-hmm. which is in fact considered the basic step of tango. It's the tango walk. Mm-hmm. Well, what happens during the 1 and 2 is the man takes the lady's axis. Mm-hmm. So when done properly, the lady goes from vertical to slightly inclined. We like to sometimes refer to as 5 minutes to 12. So she goes from 12 to 5 minutes to 12.
Love it.
So now the lady her axis belongs to the gentleman, and the gentleman goes past her. Now, once he's hit the 4 and he has her back in front of him, she then crosses her right foot over her left foot in what is known as, it used to be called quinta posición, the 5th position. Nowadays, we simply refer to it as the 5. So now, the 5, the lady is standing with right foot crossed over left foot in a very tense and dissonant position. This is not comfortable for the lady. So we've created a crisis. And then she steps with her right foot, and she goes back, side together. And I described it wrong. She crosses her left foot over her right foot.
That's fine.
And then she dances backwards with her right foot, and side and together, creating what they call la resolución, the resolution. So it becomes a metaphor for life right away. First off, we say, well, what are the basic rules of life? Well, the rules are there are no rules.
I love it.
So it's the school of hard knocks right away. And the first rule that happens is there's going to be a problem. There's going to be a crisis. And what makes it beautiful is that with the crisis, there's going to be a resolution. And the resolution, and I tell people this all the time, the resolution is up to the creativity of the gentleman.
Wonderful.
He is going to, if you ask 4 tango dancers to dance 4 basic steps, you're going to get 4 different dances.
Wonderful. I so appreciate the way that you brought that in summary. And it seems like the time has flown by, and so we're going to have you back on the show. But until then, how, if our viewers wanted additional information, you're so rich with knowledge, how would they get in contact with you, Tony?
Very, very simple. They can call me. My number at Queen City Ballroom is 704-541-5440. They can visit my website, queencityballroom.com, and they can find me on the corner of Sharon Road and Colony at Queen City Ballroom 12 hours a day, teaching the same philosophy that we live, we love, we dance.
Oh, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate that. And as you can see, we've been featuring Tony Prado from Queen City Ballroom here on the 22 Tango Show. And remember, as we always say on the 22 Tango Show, it not only takes 2 to tango, but of course, it takes you to tango. Ciao!